What if the reason you feel stuck isn't because you're lost, but because you've settled? What if the potential inside you isn't missing, it's just buried beneath fear, doubt, and distractions? What if the life you dream about is possible, not by striving harder, but by surrendering deeper? We live in a world that runs on performance. From our first waking breath, society presses us to hustle, to grind, to climb. You're told to build platforms, to stack achievements, to strive. Yet for all this motion, something inside still whispers, is this really all there is? And that whisper, it's sacred, because it points you back to your creator. It tells you your life was designed not just for success, but for significance. Not just for the visible, but the eternal. Because the truth is this, your potential isn't dormant because you lack effort. It remains hidden because you've been taught to search in the wrong places. Unlocking your God-given potential begins not with pushing harder, but pausing longer. Not with doing more, but becoming more. More aligned, more surrendered, more attuned to the voice of the one who designed you. That voice isn't shouting from your social feed. It's not echoing from your insecurities or your resume. It's the quiet, consistent truth of God's word reminding you, you are not a mistake. You were made for purpose. You are seen. You are chosen. You are equipped. And when you start to believe that, not just in your head but in your heart, everything begins to change. Your confidence rises, not from who you pretend to be, but from who God says you are. Your clarity sharpens, not by planning every detail, but by walking in daily dependence. Your path, once clouded by confusion, begins to glow with divine direction. Because potential isn't something you create, it's something you uncover. And the tool that uncovers it? Surrender. When you stop settling for what's safe and start pursuing what's sacred, the atmosphere of your life shifts. You stop measuring your days by likes or status. You start measuring them by impact, by peace, by the way your presence carries healing. That's the shift. That's the invitation. But it's not easy. Living with God's purpose will cost you comfort. It will ask you to choose trust over control. It will call you into the unknown, not to lose yourself, but to finally find what matters. And in the process, you'll discover that your potential was never just about you. It was always about the people you're meant to serve, the lives you're meant to touch, the legacy you're meant to build. You'll begin to understand why the enemy attacks your identity so viciously, because he knows that a person who walks in purpose is dangerous, to fear, to apathy, to darkness. So how do you start? You start by going back to the source. Open God's word, not for performance, but for perspective. Listen, not for noise, but for direction. Trust, not for immediate answers, but for eternal alignment. You'll begin to hear the truth louder than your fears. You were created on purpose, for purpose, and that truth begins to set you free. You were never meant to live a life of limitation. You were made to live in alignment with God's presence, God's power, and God's purpose. When you walk in alignment, things shift. You stop chasing the wrong goals. You stop trying to fit into molds that were never meant for you. You begin stepping into the divine blueprint written over your life long before you took your first breath. Suddenly, your ambitions are refined by eternity. Your decisions reflect a bigger picture. And your peace no longer comes from perfect conditions, but from a rooted identity. Because unlocking your potential isn't about becoming someone new, it's about becoming someone true. The version of yourself that God already sees. And that version? It's courageous, it's clear, it's committed. It's the version that stops comparing and starts creating. That no longer hides in fear but rises in faith. That doesn't wait for perfect timing but moves in divine trust. Living with purpose means learning to silence the inner critic and listen for the whisper of heaven. It means choosing to see your insecurities not as obstacles, but as offerings. You bring them to God saying, "Here I am, flawed and fragile, but willing." And that willingness, that's where miracles begin. Because God doesn't require perfection, He desires partnership. You offer your little, and He multiplies it. You take one step, and He establishes your path. You say yes, and He releases heaven's best. That's why your potential is powerful. It's a vessel for His glory. The gifts you carry, they're not for applause, they're for impact. The dreams you hold, they're not just aspirations, they're assignments. And your journey, it's not a random road, it's a divinely orchestrated mission. But to walk in it, you must confront the fear that says you're not enough. You must reject the lie that your past disqualifies you. You must stop waiting for the world to approve what God has already anointed. You are not a mistake. You were formed with intentionality, filled with purpose, and placed in this moment for a reason. Your voice matters, your story matters, your obedience matters, because someone else's breakthrough might be waiting on your yes. So let your potential speak, not through noise, but through nuance. Not through performance, but through presence. Show up in rooms not trying to impress, but to influence. Serve, encourage, build, love. And when you do, you'll notice a shift, not just around you, but within you. That's what purpose does. It doesn't inflate your ego, it anchors your soul. It keeps you steady in the storm, faithful in the waiting, bold in the calling. It teaches you to stop asking, "What can I get?" and start asking, "What can I give?" Because when you live like that, your life becomes a light, not flashy, but faithful. And in a world starving for truth, faithfulness is revolutionary. This is the moment you realize that impact doesn't require a platform, it requires presence. It's not about being seen by the world, but about being known by God and being faithful where He's placed you. You don't need more followers, you need more focus. Focus on the assignment He's given you. Focus on the person in front of you. Focus on the daily decisions that seem small but shape everything. Because the truth is, your potential is released not in big, flashy moments, but in quiet, consistent obedience. The kind of obedience that says yes when no one's watching, that forgives when bitterness feels easier, that prays when answers don't come, that loves when it hurts. This is how lives are transformed, yours first and then others. The enemy knows this, which is why distraction is constant. He'll use busyness, insecurity, comparison, anything to keep you from stepping fully into who you're called to be. Because if you ever truly believe you're chosen, empowered and sent, hell trembles. So choose alignment over approval, choose truth over trends, choose mission over comfort. You weren't made to just exist, you were made to lead. Not by title, but by example. Not from a stage, but from a surrendered heart. And your surrender? It speaks louder than any sermon. It tells the world that peace is possible in chaos, that joy can survive disappointment, that hope is still alive. And that purpose isn't reserved for a select few. It's accessible to anyone who says, "God, here I am, use me." In that posture, heaven moves, chains break, fear flees, light invades. Because when you walk in God's purpose, your life becomes a bridge, connecting others to the truth that transformed you. You begin to live not for attention, but for impact. Not to be remembered, but to make Jesus known. And that is the legacy worth leaving. One where your courage empowers the next generation, where your kindness plants seeds of healing, where your faith ignites revival in hearts that had almost given up. All of this purpose, this influence, this impact, it starts not with perfection, but with presence. Daily presence, in God's word, in His Spirit, in your assignment. That's where your potential blooms, in the unseen, in the uncelebrated, in the moments when you keep showing up even when nothing seems to change. Because something is changing, you. And as you change, you create space for God to move more freely through you. So keep showing up, keep trusting, keep surrendering, because every faithful step you take is unlocking something eternal. This is the divine paradox. Your greatest influence often flows from your deepest surrender. Not from striving to be more, but from trusting that God is already enough. Not from having all the answers, but from being willing to ask the right questions. God, what have you placed in my hands? What do you want to do through my life in this season? How can I serve, love, build, and reflect your glory, right here, right now? These questions unlock a shift from scarcity to stewardship. You stop measuring what you lack and start maximizing what you've been given. And what you've been given is sacred. Your time, your voice, your story, your presence. Even the parts of your life that feel broken, God can use them. He specializes in redemption, in breathing beauty from ashes, in turning wounds into wisdom and pain into purpose. Nothing is wasted in His hands. The relationship that didn't work out, the season that almost broke you, the dreams that seemed delayed, He can use it all to build you, to shape you, to prepare you. Because potential doesn't grow in comfort. It's forged in fire, in the tension between where you've been and where God is taking you. So don't resist the stretch. Lean into it. Let it refine you, not define you. Your identity is not in what you've lost, but in who you belong to. And you belong to the one who sees all of you, your fears, your failures, your hidden hopes, and still says, "You are mine. I have a plan. I will use you." When you embrace that truth, confidence rises. Not arrogance, but authority. Not pride, but peace. You begin to move differently because you know you're not alone. You're being led, equipped, empowered by the Spirit of God who placed those dreams in your heart for a reason. And that reason isn't always about changing the world. Sometimes it's about changing one life, one conversation, one act of obedience. Because you never know how God might use your simple yes to comfort someone in pain, to offer truth in a sea of confusion, to be a light when someone else is lost in darkness. This is the power of living in purpose. It multiplies, it moves, it mirrors the heart of God. And you, friend, are part of that story. Not someday, not when you feel more ready, but today. If you're breathing, you're called. If you're listening, you're being invited. So accept the invitation. Not to a perfect life, but to a purposeful one. One where your gifts are stirred, your faith is stretched, and your life becomes a vessel of heaven's hope. When you live this way, something shifts inside you. You stop looking at life as a race to be won and start seeing it as a calling to be walked, step by step, day by day, with intention, humility, and trust. Because God's pace is not rushed and his path is not random. It's precise, it's personal, and it's rooted in love. Even when you can't see where it's going, you can trust who's leading. This is the confidence that grows when you live surrendered. Not confidence in yourself, but confidence in God's unfailing guidance. Confidence that he is working behind the scenes. That he is using even your delays, your detours, your disappointments for something far greater. And with each moment of trust, something sacred unfolds. Your character deepens. Your spirit strengthens. Your love becomes more generous. Your faith more unshakable. Not because life is easier, but because your anchor is stronger. You begin to understand that potential is not performance, it's presence. It's being present with God, present with people, and present in the purpose he's placed before you. You stop idolizing outcomes and start honoring obedience. You realize that fruitfulness in the kingdom isn't measured by popularity, but by perseverance, by how well you love when it's hard, by how faithfully you serve when no one claps, by how boldly you speak truth even when it costs you. That's what it means to live fully awake, to live like you are chosen, to live like your life is a message, a mission, a miracle in motion. And yes, there will be opposition. Resistance always meets purpose. The more you step into your calling, the more you'll feel the tension. But don't let that stop you. Let it sharpen you, because you are not alone. Heaven backs your obedience, the Spirit empowers your weakness, grace covers your gaps, and your story, your process, your journey is not a detour. It's a display of what God can do with someone who refuses to quit. So show up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Show up with excellence, not for applause, but for integrity. Show up with courage, not for recognition, but for mission. Show up with love, not for reward, but because that's who you are now. Someone who lives different, loves different, leads different. Not because you're better, but because you're becoming. Becoming the kind of person who doesn't shrink back in fear, but rises in faith. Becoming the kind of voice that lifts others, not with noise, but with truth. Becoming the kind of believer who reflects heaven on earth. And the world desperately needs more of that. More people living not for perfection, but with purpose. Not for validation, but for vision. You are that person, and your time is now. So don't wait for someday. Don't wait for clarity to be perfect or for the timing to feel right. Don't wait until you feel qualified, confident, or certain. Faith doesn't wait. It walks. It moves with a holy courage that says, even if I can't see the full picture, I trust the one who holds it. Your potential is not a future possibility. It's a present reality. It's not locked behind some distant goal. It's alive in you right now, waiting for your obedience to awaken it. And as you walk it out, you'll find that your purpose expands. The more you pour out, the more God pours in. The more you give, the more you grow. The more you trust, the more you thrive. You won't need the spotlight. You'll shine in the shadows. You won't need the title. You'll lead with truth. You won't need applause. You'll be fueled by assignment. This is the kind of life you were created for. A life where joy is your strength, where peace guards your mind, where hope is your anchor and love is your language. A life that disrupts darkness not by noise but by presence. A life that brings heaven close, not through perfection but through surrender. You become a person who shows up with open hands and an open heart, saying, "God, use me today." And He will. Not always in grand ways, but in God ways. Through the hug you offer, the words you speak, the forgiveness you extend, the truth you share, the prayers you pray, heaven will touch earth through your faithfulness. So keep going. Keep planting seeds of purpose in ordinary places. Keep choosing faith over fear, worship over worry, obedience over convenience. And as you do, your potential won't just unlock, it will multiply. It will reach beyond you. It will spark courage in others. It will breathe life into dry places. It will echo in eternity. Because you chose to live differently, to live awake, to live with intention. To live like you believed every promise God ever spoke over your life. And here's the truth. The best is still ahead. God's not finished with you. He's just getting started. There's more to build, more to bless, more to become. So stay close to His presence. Stay rooted in His word. Stay aligned with His purpose. And if this message stirred something in your soul, don't let it end here. Follow Think Fresh daily. Join a community of people who are choosing to live not just for success, but for sacred purpose. Because your potential is not just about what you do, it's about who you become when you live surrendered. And that journey, it's just beginning. Let's keep unlocking it together.